First story. My BH, 41M, refuses to have sex with me, 38F, because of my affair. I have been with my husband for 15 years and have 3 lovely children together, 12F, 8 meters and 6F. We have had an amazing marriage throughout the years. But all this changed on D-Day, which was 21 months ago. Before I come to the main issue, let me give my backstory first. I had a PA for nearly a year with a co-worker who was part of my team. My husband found out about my betrayal when he one day borrowed my phone to make a call. His phone was discharged, and later, while tinkering around, he went through my gallery. He later said he was looking through some of our old photos for nostalgia and found some photos with AP which I had forgotten to delete. Those photos weren't sexual, but they pretty much gave away our affair. My BS was completely devastated and then went into a fit of rage. He screamed and called me all sorts of names, and I started sobbing. He stopped when the kids finally heard him screaming, and my youngest started crying. They didn't hear exactly what happened as we were in the bedroom. We composed ourselves and calmed them down. I don't know how, as I was absolutely distraught myself. After we sent the kids back downstairs, he demanded to see all our texts, and he sat down and read everything, including some mild sexual details. AP and I weren't really into sexting. After he was done, he just threw the phone away and went outside and returned hours later and didn't speak to me. The next couple of months was absolute hell. My BS just stopped talking to me, like at all. He kicked me out of our bedroom. Even the kids knew something was wrong and were distraught and kept asking why their daddy won't speak to me. I just told them after that we had a big disagreement. I cried for hours every day. It was so bad that BS wouldn't even touch the food which I cooked for us. During this time, I had decided that I wanted to give everything I had to try and save this marriage. So I immediately left my job and went NC with my AP. Around this time, my BS had a work trip for 2 weeks, so we were basically NC for that time, except for a couple of times he called to check in on the kids. When he returned, out of the blue, he said that he wanted to speak to me regarding our situation, as he put it. I was first ecstatic that he actually spoke to me in months, but then scared about where this was headed. So I went in with mixed feelings. My BS said that he did a lot of thinking while on the trip, and then came to a conclusion that he was still unsure about breaking up the family. He also said that he felt that our relationship was basically done, and that he had no hopes left on that front. But he did not want to break up the family, as the kids required a lot of attention at this age. So I asked him whether he was open to try to R, and he basically said he was unsure about it, since he would remain at home. I was free to try and rebuild whatever remained of our relationship if I wanted to R, but before that, he had a bunch of conditions that, if weren't met, would lead to instant divorce. I had to leave my job immediately, and NC with AP had already done that, so no problems there. I also could not in any circumstance look for any new job employment of any kind. He basically wanted me to be a permanent SOM. For context, I was a SOM for the majority of our relationship, since I had left my job around a year into our marriage due to the birth of our first child, and had continued that role for another 8 years. I had just again started working around 3 years prior to D-Day, after we decided that we didn't want any more children. There would be an open phone policy in place for me, and I also could never go anywhere without telling him exactly where I was going and why. I also could not talk or be friends with any person from the opposite sex, except for immediate family and other unavoidable situations, such as the delivery man and other such cases. I also had to give him a full disclosure along with a full timeline of our affair with every possible detail I could. Yes, he wanted every single detail, including things like what I wore each time and the sexual details like which positions and how long we had sex, etc. I was extremely happy that I was given a chance to R by BS and immediately accepted all his conditions. Well, Not exactly all of them actually, because I had a few reservations about the condition regarding me never working again. I mentioned this to my BP, but he replied that since my affair started, and sometimes took place, at work, the idea of me working again was triggering to him, and that my working wasn't necessary since he himself earned enough to run the household. For context, my BP has a really high-paying job and earns almost 7 times what I earned. I am not going to lie. I was a little conflicted, but I finally accepted this because I completely understood why my BS wanted this. And I wanted nothing more than to help him feel more safe and comfortable. If we were to I also quite badly wanted to be with him and keep my family intact, and I guess this was a consequence of my actions, so I took one for my family. So when all this was done, I decided to fully devote myself to my family and marriage with Bias. I immediately started IC for myself to try and understand and fix the issue within myself to allow this damned affair. I tried to encourage my BS to join IC to help him heal, but he would have nothing of it. He said he didn't really feel IC would be helpful to him and told me I could do whatever I wanted. Fast forward to now, almost 18 months after our talk, things have gotten much better on our personal front. I have done everything I could think of, like consistent IC sessions, reading books and listening to podcasts about the pain the BS face, validating my BS's feelings, being his verbal punching bag when needed, giving him space, etc. We even went for a few MC sessions for a few months in between. To be honest, the first year was hell with him, just initially continuing to ignore me for a few months after our discussion. This then slowly started improving when he began to open up to me and finally let me back into our bedroom, almost 6 months post D-Day. But later, he would have random outbursts of anger at me where he said some quite horrific things to me, including name-calling, which ended with me sobbing almost all the time. This also slowly and finally stopped after a while. We somehow managed to just painfully improve various aspects of our relationship. Today, I can say we have come a long way from where we started. Except for one thing, sex. So, coming to our main problem. Well, many things about our relationship has improved drastically, but nowhere near how good it was pre-affair. We still haven't been able to have sex. At first I didn't even think about sex for almost a year post D-Day. Since, like I mentioned, it took a good 5-6 months for BS to let me back into the bedroom, let alone allow me to touch him. Then one day while I was thinking about how much better things have become, it hit me that wait, we haven't actually had sex post D-Day. I didn't bring it up for quite some time, then finally one day mustered up the courage to mention the issue with him. He just brushed it off, saying that well, he sees the improvements in our relationship since D-Day, and myself included. Sex is something which he was nowhere near attempting or thinking about again. He said the sexual details of my affair disgusted him and he saw me as tainted. I was terribly hurt by this, but I accepted this as one of the burnt bridges of my affair, which I had to try and rebuild. I didn't mention sex again for a few months, as I didn't want to make him feel pressured or anything. But then I gently breached the topic again, and this time he said that he wasn't in the mood. This routine went on for some time. We have gotten to a point where the most he can manage is a light kiss on the lips, but anything further and he just quickly backs off. I feel terribly sad by this, for us and for him. I tried to talk about this with him again 2 months ago, and he snapped this time. He told me quite brutally that if I wanted sex that bad I should just go and FCKAP, since that is what I liked. I tried to tell him that I didn't want that, but he just ended the conversation and stormed off. I felt horrible and I cried quite a bit after this. I have stopped mentioning sex to him anymore out of fear of another outburst. We are in a pretty decent place otherwise. We talk quite a lot and have quality family time with the kids, but this aspect of our just hurts, and while I would love to have sex with him, I think that helping him heal from this is more important than my desires. My IC says that this happens sometimes, and I could wait, but if this doesn't improve after more time and making me distressed, I should look maybe ending things. While I respect this opinion, this is the last thing I want. I am fine with waiting as long as it takes for him, because I have no intentions of leaving and breaking the family because of this. I just want him to feel better. If anyone managed to read my long post, thank you, and any advice is welcome. I felt this was the right place to try and get help regarding this, as other subs are not quite the right place for people like me. Second story. I was a teen who was heavily involved in my parents' infidelity. My dad never recovered. I blame my mom. Let me start by saying I love both of them dearly, and it didn't used to be like this. My parents were married for 26 years. They had 3 kids, me, 24F, and 2 boys, 19M, 11M. My dad didn't drink in those days, but my mom did heavily. She was the breadwinner, a corporate lawyer. And then my dad struggled so he could work and put her through school, so eventually one day, they could have someone home with the kids and make enough money. I was 4 when she went back to college, then law school after. They beat addictions, poverty, everything together. They truly started from the bottom. In 2014, my mom landed a life-changing job, making her salary go from $70K to 6 figures. I've never seen my parents jump up and down from excitement like that. I was 14. They built a dream house, moved in by 2015. In 2016, my mom started having an affair with her coworker. It went on for 9 months before my dad found out. I was upstairs in my bedroom when he confronted her. I was supposed to be a friend's house but didn't go. I was 16. I heard my dad sobbing, asking her why and if it was true. Well, she sat on the couch and told him she felt he was emasculated because he took care of the kids, and that's why she did this. I ran downstairs and out the door. They both tried calling, I never picked up. Went to a friend's house to tell her what happened. From here, another 6 months of trauma ensued by them trying to work things out, which was just her sleeping in the basement while going out to meet men, and him staying at home crying while making us dinner. Finally, I definitively caught her cheating again and told my dad. She called me a B-word and left our family with no contact for 4 weeks. Later found out she was staying with the guy she's now married to. They go through a messy divorce court lasting till 2018, where she goes for the jugular in court. No support to him, and he only gets the boys every other weekend, for no reason other than she wanted to. My dad was a better parental figure and nurturer than she's ever been. I don't hold that against her, but he was the mother figure in our family dynamic. Fast forward to today. My mom is living large in that same house with a new husband. She moved in only 6 months after my dad moved out. This caused my 16-year-old brother at the time to move in with my dad full-time. He still does now at 19. My dad drinks himself to sleep every night and can barely make ends meet. He works blue-collar garage door work, but he's almost 60 now. The economy is insane for somebody who spent 17+ years as a stay-at-home dad with little work history. He'll call me crying about how he put everything into the life he had with his family only for him to be at square one without a pot to piss in. His words. He works 40 hours, but still needs to borrow money from me, and I don't mind at all, but it makes me depressed because I know he hates asking, so if he's asking it's dire. He's never picked himself back up in the last 6 years, and now it's too far gone, and he's getting older and weaker. Sometimes he does get drunk and in his feelings to my 19-year-old brother, and it bothers him. In fact, they argue about it. I try to explain to have empathy and just take in our moments with Dad before he's gone, but he just feels like I'm making excuses for him. I still love my mom, but I can't help but think my dad's life wouldn't be so sad if she didn't do what she did. And I won't even speak on the doom trauma it's caused me from my marriage. I hold so much anger towards her, even though she's footed the bill for me financially my whole life. I wouldn't have my aesthetics license if she didn't help me go to school, but her morals are so twisted I can't look past it. I know I didn't go through the infidelity myself, so delete if not allowed. I just needed people to talk to that might understand. Just yesterday my dad called me crying again, which promoted this post. Feel free to ask questions. Update. No, he didn't have insurance and mental health wasn't really taught to him. He was born in '68 and has the "I'm a man, I need to put on a strong face and push through" mentality. He didn't have any money to pay his lawyer, so he ended up representing himself in court and had no idea what he was doing. She does corporate law for a living, so she had the most well-known divorce attorney in our city. He smokes weed, and we live in Indiana. This was used against him, as well as the fact he technically didn't have any income when they got separated because he was staying at home with us. He had no attorney, couldn't afford one, didn't know how to get a free one, and I was only a teenager, so I also had no idea how any of it worked. She's a corporate lawyer. She's literally friends with the best divorce attorney in our city. He represented her. No, we were no contact for a little over a year, as trying to talk about what happened always ended in screaming. My current partner's mom died in 2021. And I felt regret that if my mom died I'd feel bad being NC. I reached out in 2021 and we have had a minimal strained relationship. One day she asked me why I wasn't an esthetician, told her I couldn't pay for it. She offered me the down payment, I accepted. When I try to bring up the past, she stonewalls with "How long are we going to bring this up?" My middle brother knows everything. I told him when he was 13, so she couldn't lie about why it all happened. The youngest knows nothing, and has the best relationship with her. My middle brother is similar to me, strained relationship. Can't really be around her for more than a couple hours. He's in welding school, almost got kicked out because we couldn't make the payments. She saved his ass financially. She guilts us this way. Thank you for this. I really try to let him know no matter what happened he got children that love him unconditionally out of it. We go to lunch at least once a week if not more, and live only 10 minutes from each other. Constantly assuring him he's raised us correctly, and still has his family even if it looks different. I guess I should have added. I was no contact with my mom for a year after court was finalized. Because I did tell her she was wrong, and it led to us being unable to be civil in the same room. I came back into her life after my partner's mother died and he urged me to make amends. Once I came back, she then paid for me to go back to school, etc. So it's now this weird limbo. Both of us chose to live with my father full-time and struggle with him over living with my mom. Again, she didn't pay any support to us. We all struggled but didn't care because we knew being with him was the right thing to do. Because before she did this I was a preteen girl leaning into womanhood, and she was my mother. I was her only daughter, my first period, boyfriend, makeup, etc. I was experiencing all this with her. I looked up to her. When she did this I was devastated, and still a child at that. My relationship with both of my parents for 17 years was really good, up until this point. And I did end up going no contact with her, but eventually was pushed to attempt to reconnect, which is where we are at now. I know you didn't want to hear because she was my mom, and maybe it makes me weak for not being able to kick her to the curb fully, but I still remember being a little girl and having a good life with her and him. To answer your questions, yes, her and I were no contact for a little over a year. I would try and have real conversations with her about what she did and why it was unnecessarily cruel. Usually would end up in screaming, so we just stopped talking and interacting. It wasn't until my partner's mom passed, I had doubts about what if my mom passed, how would I feel. I reached out to her. We hung out minimally, were able to get lunch, get coffee, etc. Nothing more than a couple hours. She asked me why I hadn't gone to school, told her I couldn't afford it. She offered to help me with the down payment, I accepted. Anytime I try to bring it up, I'm stonewalled with "How long are we going to keep bringing this up?" My youngest had no choice as he was forced by the courts to live with her full-time, but their relationship is strained. The 19 years old moved in with my dad when he was 16 and allowed. Barely speaks to my mom like me, but he's in trade school, only possible made by her. Yes, she married one of the two APs she had, not the one she worked with though. Yes, she quite literally destroyed his life and thinks her happiness is justification enough for it. I wouldn't really say she bought me off with money. I attempted reconciliation before she offered that, because my partner's mother died. When that happened, I questioned my NC decision, thinking if my mom died, would I regret it? We would get lunch every now and again. She asked me why I was still a server and not an esthetician. I told her the down payment was too much. She offered to pay for it. She's my mom offering to help me with school. I accepted it. When I try to talk about what happened, she stonewalls me with, "How long are we going to talk about this? We don't talk as much anymore."